What's happening, party people? New episode, Pasty-T Garage, coming at you. Today, we're going to be working on the 1993 Skyline sedan. We're just going to be doing a little bit of maintenance on it. Basically, we were replacing the fuel filter. And the fuel filter on these cars, get the light on, is down there. There's the fuel filter. Now, these fuel filters are funny because they have this little 90-degree bend on them. Now, you can get the exact same filter as this car comes with by ordering a filter for a 90s J30 or I30. Either way, I can't remember. I think it's J30, but it's the Infinity Maxima basically, and it's the exact same as the 300ZX filter, except it has this little bend on the top. So that bend is important because, as you can see, where it mounts up here has this line going to it that bends down, and then underneath of it, it's kind of hard to see, it's got the other part. Now, it's got a bracket past this line. It's got two 10mm bolts holding the bracket to the little shock tower right here. So we're going to remove that. We're going to take the fuel filter off, install the new fuel filter, prime the car, start it up, make sure it works. Now, one thing you want to do is, because fuel is a pressurized system, you want to depressurize the system. In order to do that, you consult Uncle Google, and you find out that the ignition right up here, probably hard to see, the 15 amp above the ignition is the fuel pump. So you're going to go into the driver's side of the car. Underneath is this little door. That is your fuse panel. As you can see, it has ignition 15. So we're going to crawl underneath of here, find the 15 amp fuse. It's next to the 10, next to the 20. So it's this guy right here. Take our handy little fuse removal tool. We're going to awkwardly grab that 15 amp fuse, pull it out, and then we're going to crank the car over. Now, we crank the car over because basically what this does is it relieves the fuel pressure of the vehicle. It shouldn't start because the fuel pump will not prime, will not run, but make sure it's a neutral. I'm going to go ahead and put the key in the ignition. No fuel pump priming. Oh, apparently I hit the turn signal. We're gonna let it just die. I'm gonna start it again. That should be all the fuel pump primed, done. Drop that off. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and remove the lines that connect the fuel pump or the fuel filter to the rest of the system. So we'll disconnect this screw right here. There's one underneath of it, but we're gonna take that bracket off first. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a 10mm socket and get that going. All right, we're gonna get in there. Hope that this deep socket isn't too deep. Looks like it's the perfect fit. I'm gonna take these bolts loose. Now, one tool that I didn't say that I was gonna use is a drip pan. And that's just going to go underneath because as you pull the filter off, it's going to have residual fuel that just falls out. So this just prevents your garage floor or whatever from getting fuel all down it. Because fuel does eat paint, so if you have a painted floor or something like that, then this will eat through that. And I also have a magnetic tray, so I can get these bolts onto the tray so I don't lose them. Alright, bracket is loose. Go ahead and pull that tool back out. So it's loose, but I'm going to grab a Phillips head screwdriver, get the top part off, and then the other one is underneath. And it looks like the screw head is not where I can get it really easily. I have replaced this once before. It was a while ago. Okay, we have a little ratcheting screwdriver fitting to try to use. There we go. Now that that is in a better position, I may get an actual screwdriver to line up and loosen that. I think I did get a screwdriver on the bottom, so we'll get a screwdriver. A proper screwdriver. Yeah, so we're basically going to loosen these all the way. Slide them up on the hose. You don't want to lose these clamps. Yeah, slide past the neck. And what we're going to do is pull the hose off. It might still be a little tight just from heat, from a little bit of residual pressure. Now what you can't probably see is me getting that screw underneath. The little hose clamp. It's more or less a by feel. Okay. That one I may have loosened too much. So we're going to slide that again off down the hose, the fuel hose. That one may just stay. It's kind of being a little pain. If you're lucky, which I may not be, you can twist the hose to get it to release from the filter itself. Mine doesn't want to do that, so we're going to get some pliers, try to loosen it up. Now, this is not the most recommended method, because if you damage your hose, you need to get more. But we're just going to see if we can break it loose. All we're trying to do is break it free. The other thing we can do is remove it from the other side of the line. Pull the whole thing up as an assembly, which we may end up doing. And by the other part of the line, so this line connects to here, so we can remove it from that part of the hose, take the whole hose with us, which is what we might end up doing. The other thing you can do is get a small hose pick and try to fish on the inside to release it from the inside. So we may try that too. Alright, so this is a pick like I'm talking about, and you can just kind of work it in here to try to relieve the hose that's frozen onto the part. And basically all I'm doing is walking it around to try to release that. I've got two hands. You want to be extremely careful not to puncture the hose. Oh, finally. As y'all can see, there was a lot of struggle, but the fuel hose eventually did come off. So we're gonna pop that up. You may not be able to see, but there is fuel in here. So we're gonna pull that up. But as you can also see, because we depressurized the fuel system, there was no spurting of fuel as it came out. So now, down there is our other little guy we gotta get removed. So we're gonna hopefully not have as much effort or struggle getting that out. Probably also not be able to show y'all very well what I'm doing. Come on. Gross. So we're just gonna go ahead and wrap a towel around the fuel hose that we just removed, because my arm is rubbing up on it and it is just dumping fuel on me as I bump up against it. Now, because the fuel filter has a little bit more leverage that I can pull on and twist, that hose is not fighting me nearly as much, except right now while it's at the end. So I'm just using some pliers to help wiggle I'm actually going to use another pick to help push the hose past that bottom nipple. It's literally almost about to come out. There we go. Alright. So as y'all can hear, may not be able to see, fuel filter itself did have fuel inside of it. So we're just going to let that drain a little bit into our pan that we put underneath the car before we remove it completely. Alright, had to swap out my gloves. The other ones got a little nasty. Highly recommend gloves for this project. So we're just going to go ahead and pull the fuel filter out. So this bracket, as you can see, the filter just clamps into it. So you could just pull it off. You wouldn't have to remove that. I'll be honest with you, I forgot. Some brackets have a hose clamp that basically just secures the whole thing to it. So go ahead and take this to a bench as we swap out. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pop off the old one since we know the orientation. And pop the new one on so we can verify the orientation. Now this hose itself we're gonna have to replace, so you can see now that we have decent leverage, we're able to walk it. And all I'm doing is gripping the hose and pulling the filter itself out. So I'm just kind of doing a twisting pulling motion so that it can release. I mean, you want it to be tight. Fuel pressure's 40, 50 psi, give or take, depending on application, depending on how hard you're hitting it. Right, so now that that's off, the filter's leaking all over the place, we're gonna shoot the new one on. Alright, put it on all the way. We're going to walk this clamp over it. We're going to go ahead and tighten the clamp. We're going to do it in the up maneuver right here, because that's how it's going to be easiest for us to loosen it while it's in the car. So, and for the hose, so you can see right here is where it went past this nipple. So we want to make sure the clamp is well beyond that, so when you tighten it down, if the hose for some reason gets pulled, stretched, whatever, it will never come past that nipple. So we're just going to tighten it. It needs to be tight, but it doesn't need to be so tight that you're stripping out the screw. If it is a little loose and you notice there's a little fuel leaking past this section, you can always tighten it more. Another reason why we would have it, this is how it kind of sits in the car, so we can access it while it's in the car. Okay, let's install the rest of it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and fish it back down. Make sure this clamp doesn't fall off. And I can reach right around the master cylinder right here where the brakes. Push it onto the hose down there until I feel it click. And by click, I mean I feel the nipple fall all the way down to where it needs to go. We'll pull up on the hose clamp until it goes over the nipple. You'll feel it start to struggle. You might be able to see where the little bulge is, where the nipple goes into the hose. Because again, you want it past that. So you just have to wiggle the hose clamp until it goes over that bulge. And once it's past, you'll feel it loosen. Alright, so we're going to grab our screwdriver. We're going to tighten it now right above that nipple like we did on the top hose. Much easier to go back in than to uninstall, and that's mainly because we just don't have to fight the hose. And again, you want to tighten the hose clamp until it feels tight, but you don't need to strip the head out because it's really not that much pressure that it's under. Alright, so that's on all the way. Now one thing you could do now is I'm going to go ahead and attach the top hose to its home and push it on all the way. Alright. Then I'm going to move the hose clamp to its home. Again, you're going to have to fight the bulge that is that fuel hardline nipple. Okay, now it's past it. I'm going to hold it in place with one finger, tighten up the clamp with the other hand. If I can, there we go. Just reorient it a little bit now that it's tighter. We will reinstall the two 10mm bolts that go between the fuel filter housing and the shock tower. we're going to hand start each one. And then we'll get our handy dandy ratchet and 10mm socket. Alright. Make sure those are tight, but it doesn't have to be super tight. Okay. Now the last thing, and this is just because I had this, is I have this piece of heat shield, and I wrapped it around both fuel lines that are right here, and I just zip tied it just to prevent any sort of chafing on those lines while the car drives. Can't be too cautious, so just wrap a zip tie around that. Get them kind of tight, cinch it up, and then cut the end off. Okay. So now that that's all done, we're going to go ahead and put our tools away because we're going to start the car. So we're going to take all our tools because hate to start the engine and all of a sudden get a tool that falls down into the engine bay causing any sort of issues. So we're going to remove all of our tools. Alright, so we're just going to double check that all our connections are secure. Got the one right here, we've got the one here that we took loose, and then we have the one that's underneath that you can't really see from here. So that's all done. Last thing we need to do is replace the fuse. I'm going to go back into the driver's compartment, hit our head on the steering wheel. I'm going to put the fuse in its home. I guess we'll take it out of this fuse remover. Put that there. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and prime the vehicle. You should hear the fuel pump turn on. Now what we're gonna do is go ahead and let it sit for a little bit. We're gonna prime it again. And we're gonna start it up. You can see it started up beautifully. And the last thing we're going to do is just check for any sort of fuel leaks. Alright. I do not see any fuel leaks. I do not smell any fuel. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. Try to turn it off. Okay, and that completes our fuel filter installation. As you can see, not a terrible job. The thing that hung us up the most was just frozen fuel lines, the rubber that went around all the filter parts, and this little block right here. That's pretty common. It's not just a Nissan thing. It's any old car, any rubber that sits in heat. I mean, the engine bay is a very hot zone, so any rubber that's been cooked a little bit is going to seize, is going to get a little hard, a little brittle around those pieces. So you just have to break them free. And as you can see, if you have a good pick set, and if you use a little ingenuity, you might be able to walk the hoses off without damaging them. But yeah, that's going to do it for me today. This application should be pretty similar to other cars. You're going to have a fuel pump fuse that you can pull to depressurize the system. You're going to have lines that go to the inlet and outlet of your fuel filter. You're going to have hose clamps. You're going to have hoses that might seize up. So all of these things can be used for other vehicles. This is for the RB20DET on a Skyline. So, you know, consult your owner's manual, consult, you know, the internet to see exactly what you might need to do to get your application figured out. But that's just it for me today on this car. So thanks everybody for joining me. If you're new to this channel and you hit that sub button, that would be really appreciated. If you already are subscribed, thank you so much. Go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and drop a comment below. Thanks everybody. See you in the next video.